Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today, and this is our Thursday lecture, and we are happy to present you the topic of our meeting today, the exam cheat sheet, TOEFL and IELTS. So what are TOEFL and IELTS, and why would you need to pass them while applying to US university, and how can you choose the best test for you? What steps do you need to take to pass them? Today, we are glad to see and glad to welcome our speaker, Olena Tanchyk, who is Fulbright Research and Development Program Scholar 2021-2022 from Arizona State University, and she will reveal all the secrets of the most popular language tests. Thank you, Olena, for joining, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Oksana. For me, it's such a pleasure and honor to be here today with you, with our participants, and I hope that our conversation will be fruitful, active, and we will cover some topics today, and I will share my experience, and we encourage you to ask questions, so please write us in the chat. Unfortunately, we can't see people face to face, but modern conveniences and modern technologies help us to still interact and present and ask and answer questions. So I think we are good to start, and yeah, so let's have a look at our presentation that we have for today. So we call it the exam cheat sheet, TOEFL and IELTS. We are not going to speak today about the format of exam, and we are not going to speak in all detail about each question that we are going to cover during the exam, or usually people have during the exams, because for this we usually organize special boot camps because it's a lot to cover and to comprehend. But today we want to share with you some tips and tricks and ignite you to and encourage you to take the exams and not to be afraid. So the agenda for today is general information about the exams. Then I will give you some recommendations and maybe share my experience how to cover reading, listening, writing, and speaking parts of both exams. And at the end, as I have already mentioned, there will be some tips and tricks for exam preparation, and I will share my experience. So I hope you guys all have your tea, coffee, water with you. Sit comfortably and enjoy. I hope you will enjoy the next hour with us. So our first part is general information. And before we start, please write us in the chat. So your associations with the word exam. So when you hear the word exam, what do you guys feel? Are you nervous? Are you excited? So what are your feelings, and what emotions do you have when you hear the word exam? Some people panic. Some people have a spine-chilling experience. So what about you? So write us in the chat and about your feelings, and if you're a friend with exams, or it's experience that you never want to have in your life. And I see a lot of answers in the chat. Hi everyone. I see that you are writing. Yeah, so hi, somebody wrote a virtual hug to us. Thank you. Yes, so hello everyone. And I see that people say that they feel stressed and they're anxious, awful, nervous and challenging experience. Yeah, so I don't see people who would say, I'm happy, I'm excited, it's the best time of my life, and I'm on the top of the world when I have an exam. Yeah, so some people are even scared. Yeah, so they feel that the exam is not really an experience that they want to have in their lives. Or some people, Anton wrote that he doesn't have any particular emotions, which is also fine. So I want to tell you guys, so exams are not that scary and not that terrifying experience. So as soon as you're well prepared, as soon as you understand the structure, so you shouldn't worry about that, and you should try to come and show your best. Yeah, so you come to exam, either you do this online or offline, paper-based or computer-based. So just show maximum, show yourself. I'm pretty sure that before the exams, people usually prepare hard. So that's why you have to talk to yourself, to your inner eye, to your inner self, that if you have been preparing a lot, so just this 3 hours of exam, or a little bit less for IELTS, it's high time for you to demonstrate all your skills, all your capabilities. So before, this is what is an important path. So before, you have to really work hard. But during the exam, if you worry, if you feel anxious, so this will only distract you. So just focus and concentrate, okay? So yeah, and I keep looking at the chat. So thank you everyone for your responses and for being active. So let's move next. And this slide tells you about a lot of exams, different exams that you might need if you need to enter. We speak today mostly about US universities, European and Asian universities. I'm pretty sure you also need to take at least a language exam. But for American exams, yeah, we need GRE, we need GMAT and others. We are not going to cover them today again, because in Education USA, we have other boot camps and other streams where professionals can speak more about those. Today, we will only focus on TOEFL and IELTS. And just want to tell you that another option that we have now is Duolingo. Okay, and if you're interested in Duolingo, we can, by the way, write us in the chat if you're interested in Duolingo, because this is something that we might cover in our next streams, right? So write us in the chat if you have ever heard about Duolingo exam, and if you're interested, we can prepare a session for you. But today we will cover more standard, yes, so more standard exams, well-known exams, TOEFL and IELTS. So moving on, this is my question again, so you don't have to write in the chat, but I always ask people to check if they are familiar with the exams, like what is IELTS and who is TOEFL? That just a trick to check if people are familiar with those exams. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that if you are here with us today, so you know what IELTS and TOEFL, those are two standard exams that people take if mostly they need to enter the university. Sometimes some companies, universities or colleges, sometimes some companies require to have language exam to prove that you are capable of communicating and before they hire you. But mostly it's for education. I will speak from my experience. Yeah, so I will speak from my experience. So the next thing is we are going to cover these topics. Yes, so in the first part, so what are countries, which is easier, structure, scoring, what score do I need, paper-based, computer-based, general or academic, and we will speak about experimental part. Those are the questions that sometimes my learners or people who know me ask about those exams. So speaking of countries, normally most universities will emphasize that their students must have the necessary English language skill in order to take a course in their school, in their university or college. Mostly one will be required to take an English test. TOEFL and IELTS are their conventional tests required to be taken to figure out how good your knowledge is. And many are torn between knowing which of these tests is easier. The answer is they are at the equal language standards base. So I can't say that TOEFL is easier or IELTS is easier from the language point of view. From my personal experience, IELTS is easier from structure. Okay, so for me, it's easier to comprehend it. It has 4 parts. Everything is like clear for me. As for TOEFL, it's not as clear as IELTS in terms of a mixture of different skills that you need to show during each part. What I mean is, later on you will see, when you have reading in IELTS, it doesn't mean that you will only read the text and do questions, right? So when you have reading part, it will still involve some listening. The same goes to writing. In IELTS, if you have writing, for us, it's a classical thing. You write, okay? So you have a question and you start writing. It doesn't work with TOEFL in such a way. When you have TOEFL, you have to listen, you have to read, and then you have to write. We will speak about the format in a sec or two. But just for you to understand that if you're not familiar with the format, you better do that. You better get acquainted with structure, with question types. Otherwise, even if you know English perfectly well, even if you feel like, yeah, you're on the top of the world, this structure, this sophisticated, I would even say, tasks will throw you off the guard, and you will just spend time on understanding what you need to do. So, just from the language point of view, to say which is easier, they are equal. From structure, I would say that for me, personally, IELTS is more understandable and comprehensible. Maybe for someone, TOEFL will be more convenient. It's all your preferences, but we will see the structure and you can understand for yourself which is easier for you. Coming back to the countries question, so IELTS is originally was administrated and is administrated by the British Council in the University of Cambridge and also IELTS Australia. Okay, it doesn't mean that if you want to enter university in the US, you need to take only TOEFL, not IELTS. No, you have to. Normally these days you have to go to university website and to see which exams they accept, okay? But most of universities in the United States accept both IELTS and TOEFL. And as we have already mentioned, Duolingo as well. It's only last maybe 3-4 years, it's gaining more and more popularity too. But again, you have to be attentive and check and see their university website. We always recommend people to do that, okay? So speaking of TOEFL, it's US-based exam. Yeah, so what does it mean? It means that it was originally administrated and created and supported by US-based organization, which is called ETS, and it's a non-profit organization which is used widely in American and Canadian university. Okay, but as I have already mentioned, nowadays it doesn't matter. TOEFL and IELTS are popular both in American universities and in European one. Speaking of structure, I want to move to another slide, yes, so that you will see the structure of these exams. I know that the slide is a little bit heavy, but I tried to cram it on one slide and in one table so that you guys can compare. So even if you see the components of this table, so you will see that that's of course 4 parts for both exams: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. In TOEFL, you will see reading as for 3 or 4. I will explain you why 3 or 4. 3 or 4 reading passages, it means texts. Yes, so reading text, 3 or 4 reading texts. You have 10 questions for each text, and you're going to spend up to 72 minutes for this part. Why you see from 54 to 72? Why 3 or 4 texts? You might ask me. Yes, so like what's going on in IELTS? 3 reading passages, 40 questions, 60 minutes, pretty standard. But in TOEFL, I will come back to my previous slide. You can see experimental part. Yes, guys, believe it or not, but when you're going to exam, you might participate, not necessarily, but you might participate in, they call it experimental part. It means that you might have 3 reading passages, but you might have 4. And if you see during the exam that you have the 4th text, it means that one of these 3 texts is, so to say, experimental part. It's not going to be graded, it's not going to be included in your final score, but you never know which one. It can be the 1st text, the 2nd, the 3rd, or it might be the 4th. You don't know which one, okay? One of them. So I want you to understand that some people think, oh, if I have the 4th text, I may not pay attention to it. It will not be included. It will not be in my final score. It will not be graded as the previous one. So I will just, will not spend time. You never know which text is included in your final results, okay? So experimental part, why they do this? Not always they do this. With my learners and with my friends, so they told me that they hadn't had this part personally when I was taking part. Guess what? Of course, I had the 4th reading passage when I was already exhausted, okay? But I had the 4th part and I said, okay, welcome. Today is my day. I'm gonna take the experimental part, which again, I don't know which text is experimental. So I have to do my best in all of them. Experimental parts they do to test their systems, so to see which questions work, which not. So they do this for their personal purposes. They, I mean this US-based non-profit organization, ETS, which I have mentioned before, okay? So again, you never know which text is experimental. If you see this, yes, it's overwhelming. Yes, you need to spend now your time and to put some more efforts and concentrate more. But again, they will add you time for this. So that's why if you have 3 reading passages, it will be 54 minutes of your test. If they add the 4th part, the 4th reading passage, it means that the time will be extended up to 72 minutes. Even here, they calculated, Americans like to calculate things, yeah. So they even calculated that approximately you need to spend 1.8 a minute per question, right? So when you train yourself, when you practice, so think about the time. Yes, so time yourself. It's a very good recommendation while you practice. Time yourself, both for TOEFL and IELTS. You need to understand where you are. So speaking of listening, you can also see 3 or 4 questions or lectures in TOEFL part, okay, and 6 questions each, 6 questions per each listening passage. Then 2 or 3 conversations, 5 questions per each. Altogether, you can spend from 41 to 57 minutes. Again, why we have this range? Because you might have this experimental part. It's either reading or listening, okay? So you guys have to understand it's right. Either you have an extra text or you have an extra listening task. So they are not that cruel so that they would put both reading and listening. Otherwise, you're going to be like super exhausted, okay? You're going to be spent by the end of their exam. But again, experimental parts in TOEFL, in IELTS, they don't do like this. So for types of questions, 4 types of tasks you have. Yeah, you have a dialogue, a monologue, a conversation, and again a monologue. And you have 40 questions and 30 minutes to complete this part. Both for TOEFL and for IELTS listening, you listen only once. I know that in some exams, like British exams, you can hear twice. And while practicing, you might also practice listening to listening passage twice. In the real exam, it's only once, so you have to be ready for that. Speaking part. You see that in TOEFL, I crossed out some tasks. Good news that they make it shorter. So instead of 6 tasks that they used to have before, I think 2018 or 2019. So they used to have 4 parts. Now, 6 parts, sorry. Now there are 4 parts. So there are 4 speaking tasks and you have to spend 17 minutes altogether. Speaking of IELTS, you have 3 parts and you spend up to 14 minutes per this part. And as for writing, you can see both exams have 2 tasks. However, in writing, you have integrated task And then it's very self-explanatory. If it is integrated, it means it integrates different parts. This is what I told you before, right? That integrated task, it means that you have to read, you have to listen, and then you write. We'll come to it when we are going to cover writing part. You will see that it's not that easy, and it requires some training and practicing and preparation, but it is like this. It's integrated part. So the second part is just a classic answer. In IELTS, both parts, it's pure writing. You don't have to listen, you don't have to read the passage. So you have your question and you answer, and you spend up to 60 minutes per this part in IELTS. Professionals recommend to allocate 20 minutes per task 1 and 40 minutes for the second part. So this is very briefly the structure. The table is a little bit overwhelming, but I hope that you will project it picture, maybe take a screenshot, or I didn't do this myself, so you can find it online as well. Okay, so just remember the structure. I will come back for a second to my previous slide. Okay, so we spoke about the countries, which is easier, about structure, scoring, how they are going to score it. That's also interesting thing, how they are scoring that. You don't probably need to know all their details about that. So once again, here is the structure that we have, but usually it's a cumulative exam, you understand? So they collect your scores for each part, and then in TOEFL you have a maximum of 100, because each part will weigh and cost you 30 points max, okay? And they just put this together, collect together. With IELTS, it's a little bit more sophisticated system, okay? And probably you have heard, or maybe you have already taken and you have seen that you can have scores from 0, which is, I'm pretty sure, not about you. You know the form and the structure, and even if you go to IELTS, so you will never have 0. I'm pretty sure about that. So we have a knowledgeable audience who always join Education USA sessions. But anyway, it's from 0 to 9, okay? So 9 is maximum. You also can get this 0.5 score, yes, so that's why it can be 7.5, it can be 7, it can be 6.5, and so on and so forth. So you can see also on the screen that how they score you. For instance, if you have 6, 7.5, 7, 7.5 in your parts, so again, their average will be calculated. So altogether, it will be 7.5. They do not sum up all the results. They have the average. This is the difference between TOEFL and IELTS, okay? And speaking of structures, so just forgot to tell you so that TOEFL usually takes up to 3 hours, and IELTS it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, okay? And again, the structure is a little bit different. So TOEFL starts with reading, then listening, speaking, writing. In IELTS, you have listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And very often, speaking you will have with the person. As for IELTS, with a person. As for TOEFL, even speaking you do with machine. If you take computer-based, which TOEFL, I know they haven't had their paper-based version for a while, so it's all computer-based. IELTS, some centers I know that they still might have paper-based. It means that they will give you not that big, but they will give you papers like a book. You will open it and you will do your tests, and speaking you will do with the person. But again, when COVID hit, so even IELTS transformed to computer-based. Computer-based means that you will come to a special center or it can be home-based, and I will tell about this at the end if we have time. So you come to a special center and you do everything on the computer. They have a special system, lockdown browsers or similar, so you don't have any opportunity and the chance to cheat. You understand this and better not even try to do that. Of course, as professionals and test interlocutors, so they are in the room, and they are also can be called proctors, so they kind of monitor what you are doing, okay, and you even speak to a computer if we take TOEFL exam, which is a little bit weird because you have to sit and to speak to a machine, but that is the requirement. And you also better practice in advance how to talk to a computer, not to a person. All right, so that's we transited to paper-based, computer-based. Yes, so you understand self-explanatory, paper-based. You write it on a paper, and in IELTS, speak to a person. Computer-based, you do everything on the computer. Okay, home edition, again, it's a separate story. I would even say, yeah, it's the exam that you are going to have at home. No worries, nobody will come to your apartment, examiner or interlocutor, so they are not going to be in your room, but virtually imagine that they are going to be with you. So you take this test, you register on a special platform, you download special application on your computer or your laptop, and everything is monitored, so you don't have an opportunity to to open any programs or to have some cheat sheets next to you. Even they ask you to show your room and to sit at the back of the door, so the door of the room should be behind you. Okay, and there are a lot of requirements. On one hand, you might think that it's easier, to take it home because you can be in your atmosphere, but on another hand, all these preparations to download the application, to check your room, to show your computer, you need to literally take your computer, your camera, and show 360 degrees observation of your room. So no noises. You don't have to take anything or have anything on your table, behind you, above you, under you. So they really, you have to show your camera around, yeah, and if they suspect you while you're doing exams, so it's the same format like you communicate with me now. So they will see your camera, and if something is wrong with the video, with the connection, so the exam is going to be stopped. The results are blocked and you fail. So you can't say, oh, okay, let me reboot my computer, or sorry, I have some difficulties with internet connection, or my camera for some minutes froze. Unfortunately, if it happens, so the exam is blocked, you have to pay money, you understand, for the exam, and nobody will give this money back to you. So if you want to have a home edition version, think about it. If you can ensure this environment around you, if your connection is stable, and on one hand, again, you're in your, we have the saying in Ukraine, your walls, your home will help you. Yeah? Your home is your castle. But on another hand, it can be also a little bit worrying, because if something happened in the testing center, there is no electricity, or computers working wonky, so it's not your business, because they have testing center and the professionals who are responsible for this. Okay, and they will never tell, oh, because of our electricity issue or internet connection, we block your exam, and sorry, you have to come in some days and pay again. No, it's their responsibility. But if it's in your you're responsible for this if you have home edition. So you have to ensure comfortable environment and stable internet connection for this. And I will show you at the end something about home edition. So some people ask me about general or academic. Yeah, so in IELTS, and we have it's only for it goes only with IELTS. In IELTS you can choose general exam or academic. General exam will usually, so the difference is the format is the same, but the topics, the reading texts will be mostly on general things. They are less academic, maybe vocabulary will be still, not easy. It's not only about, some slangish words, but it will be maybe the words that you can use with your everyday communication with your friends. But speaking of academic exam, so the text will be academic, the writing will require academic vocabulary from you. So you can't use slang or jargon when you take academic IELTS. With general, it's possible. However, with general exams, you are not going to be admitted to the exams to universities, colleges, I don't know, some other schools. So they do not accept general IELTS. Only if there is some, specific requirement, or if you are not going to study at this university, but maybe you are going to perform some other activities. But even for us, for example, I'm not a student, but I'm a visiting scholar. It means that I don't take official classes at University of Arizona where I'm now, but as a Fulbright scholar, I had to take an exam, and it had to be an academic one, okay? Despite the fact that I was not supposed to study officially, I'm visiting scholar. It's the person who observes and does the research individually, okay? So that is the slight difference between general and academic IELTS. We will speak about academic, okay? Because most of you are going to study, right, at some establishments abroad. Okay, and as for experimental part, I think we have already covered it. Oh, so that was a lot to comprehend, and I know that you might feel a little bit now tired and overwhelmed. Okay, so this is structure. We spoke about scoring, and maybe let's see our chat if we have some questions, and we will try to look at them together. Oksana, do we have some questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lena. We have some questions, really. So I will start with, actually not question, but comment, but maybe you will add something about that. Ludmila Kunich, she writes that in terms of structure, that's true. The language level is important, but not enough for success. Understanding of the format is also essential.
Yes, great, Ludmila, great comment. And for everybody, please pay attention to that particular comment and these words. So structure is essential. As soon as you know how the exams are formed, types of questions, that's halfway of success. Of course, you need to know the language. Of course, you need to be able to listen, to write, but I talked to many native speakers, and I showed them these exams, and they were astounded, like, what's that? We would never take this exam. We would never be successful. And they are so proud of us foreigners who take this exam and they're successful at this exam, because they say that they would fail without knowing the structure, without practicing. It's very hard to comprehend it. So great comment, Ludmila. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the next comment will be also from Ludmila. It's quite interesting that they carry out experiments because it shows they are keen to develop and codify the test.
Exactly. Yeah. So they always try to update. And again, we only speak about TOEFL. In IELTS, they don't have experimental part. Yeah. So they try to modify. Not often, of course. It doesn't mean that they modify it every year, but once in a while they do this, like they did with speaking part. You saw that it used to be 6 parts, but probably because of this experimental parts that they do in experimental test that they do while other people take the exam. So they see that 6 parts are not that effective, and they modify it, they upgrade it. So that's why, that's interesting. On one hand, you feel a little bit like a laboratory rat, like you feel like, it's an experiment on me. Why do I have to participate in it? But, in such a way, you help, let's say like this, you help other people for future. Not necessarily you are happy to have the 4th text, even if they add your time, but it's quite hard, guys, to read 3 4, it's even way more difficult text, and answer all the questions. You really have to have the stamina, and you really need to practice, because it's like with the sports. If you do not practice, you can't run several miles, right? But as soon as you practice regularly, say every day, so to cover 3, 4, 5 miles for you, it's like a piece of cake, you know. That's why you have to, the same goes with exams. So you have to practice, you have to have stamina to sit for an hour or 42 and do a very demanding physically and mentally task, either reading or listening or writing. Speaking also, but I know that speaking, at least you can speak, you have different activities, but usually reading and writing and the listening are the most overwhelming.
Thank you so much, Olena. So we have also comment from Olena, and recently we had comments from other viewers that they are stressed, they are nervous when they pass exams, but Olena mentioned that I passed IELTS twice and really enjoyed the process.
Super, we are very happy. We are very happy. So you can also share your experience in the chat. So how was that for you? Okay, so I think that we are ready to move next and to go to our second part. And if we have some questions and time at the end, so we will definitely address them. So our second part will be devoted to each subsection of the exam, and we start with reading section. Okay, so again, we are not going to pay a lot of attention to each question type, because this is not our purpose for today. We have separate boot camps where we during 3 days cover each question. This is not that thing, but again, IELTS reading, you can see the structure. TOEFL reading, you can see the structure. I'm not gonna read it, so you can see this on the screen. And moving on, so we have, this is how TOEFL computer-based edition looks like. I know that the picture is not of a high quality, don't blame me. So that's because very difficult to find a good picture online, maybe because of some purposes that the testing systems do not share very good quality of pictures, but this is how it looks like. So first you read the text and then questions will pop up. Good news and good thing that while you are answering the questions, you will see the text. You can't underline anything, so you can't copy paste. No, this will not work, but at least you have the text in front of your eyes, which is way easier if you have just read and then you need to answer the question. So the text will be always in front of your eyes and the questions will change. Okay, so this is, and you can see above, yes, so you can see the time, you can see the number of questions. So that's why it's very important to understand the timing. Okay, so how many questions you are going to answer during a certain period of time. So there are 10 TOEFL reading question types, okay? And again, we are not going to cover them now, but just for you to know that there are 10 different questions types. So this can be true or false, not given. This can be insert the main idea. This can be matching. So different. Okay, so let's say like this, different. And when I saw this picture with the man, yeah, so that was exactly my reaction when I saw that big text about something. I had 3 texts about space, about agriculture, and about the third and the fourth. Honestly, I don't remember. I took IELTS a year and a half ago, so I don't really remember. And I was also a little bit overwhelmed, like, oh my goodness, I need to read this big text now. However, I prepared myself, or I had prepared in advance, but still when you see this, you're like, oh my God, okay, now I need to read all this. And again, you may ask me why I have to read text about my learner read the text about bees and hive and about their system of queen bee and everything when he was entering business school. And the people ask me why we need to read about animals, planets, I don't know, about something that you're not even going to discuss it maybe with your friends. You're not going to learn it in your educational establishment that you're going to, it's not your major. But the thing is, testing system doesn't know what you're going to study. Maybe you're going to be into music. Maybe your major will be in space exploration. So they can't tailor the text for every major, yes, or for every specialization. So that's why they have the general thing, and then if it's something closer to your heart, maybe you're into agriculture, and this text will be, again, a breeze for you, which was not the case for me. I know nothing. I know only tractor and farming and some other things about agriculture, but I'm not a professional at all at this. But again, they test not your knowledge of a particular area, of a particular field, like about solar panels or anything. So they test your understanding and ability to read the text and make conclusions, because you're going to study or to work at universities or some other educational establishments, and you have to be able to comprehend the information. You have to be able to make right conclusions, to summarize, and so on and so forth. Okay, this is what they check, not the understanding and not the knowledge of a particular area. So this is something that you have to understand. All right. This is a good table that might be useful for you when you cover reading section in TOEFL. For example, when it's 5th minute, so you are supposed to cover approximately 3 questions. If you're on minute 30, yeah, on 30th minute of your exam, so approximately 17 questions have to be covered. This is a good thing. You might. So this is what professionals recommend us. You might have your system, but I strongly recommend you to time yourself both for TOEFL and for IELTS when you practice and prepare, and understand that, okay, if it is minute 30 or minute 40, so you need to cover this number of questions. It will be easier for you to track if you need to speed up a little bit, or you still have time and you can think carefully and dwell on this or that question. So this timing will really help you to understand and to check yourself where you are, because time flies very quickly. Questions pop up one by one, and you don't have even an opportunity, like to breathe, to have a relief, because you really have to spend this hour or 30 minutes or 40 minutes for particular section very effectively and intensively, right? So that's why timing yourself while you're preparing is a skill number 1 that you have to both reading, listening. Speaking, it's easier because they will track your time. It's nothing that you can do about that. And writing, so you need to understand where you are in terms of time. So that's why this is an idea that I wanted to share with you. This is how IELTS look like. Okay, so pretty much the same, okay, as TOEFL format, also text and questions. Yeah, so this is how it looks like. Also on the screen, yeah, if we speak about computer-based version. 11 types of questions we have in IELTS. 10 for TOEFL, 11 for IELTS, okay? Again, what types are they? You better check yourself, or if follow our links, follow our networks, and you will see when we have a boot camp devoted to IELTS and TOEFL, or just again check yourself these question types. So some final thoughts here. Yeah, so you need to know the question type, you need to understand the strategy, how to approach each particular question. If it is matching, if it is a question, if it is true or false not given, if it is yes, no. So you need to understand the strategy. You need to understand where to find the keywords. You need to know the sentence structure, the paragraph structure, and the text structure. There are tons of books that can help you to prepare for this, and I strongly recommend you to have books that prepare particular for TOEFL or IELTS, because they teach you not necessarily English, they teach you skills. This is, I want you to remember, books that prepare us for TOEFL and IELTS, they teach not only language, they teach us particular skills that you need to acquire before you go to this or that exam. And I strongly recommend you to do that. Skills are essential. And of course, practice, practice, practice. Yeah. So these are some reading tips that we have. Yeah. So you need to predict the text. It's a skill that you need to predict the answer. This is the skill that you need to predict what can be the potential question. Of course, you need to practice reading, okay, and reading for general idea. Usually it is a recommendation first to read the text for 1 to maximum 3 minutes, and then you start answering the questions and again referring to the text and switch back and forth between questions and the text. So read the questions and highlight keywords. Also, it's a particular skill how to work on keywords. Ignore the unknown words. Sometimes my learners also say, what if I don't know the word? And I answer them back, what if the teacher doesn't know the word? It's even more shameless. Yeah, so I don't know all the words in English language, and that's maybe not very good being an English teacher and not knowing some words, but it's fine. We're all human beings, and at the end of the day we may forget some words, but this is a particular skill that you can learn how to deal with unknown words, and that is an approach how to work with unknown words. And again, all these IELTS and TOEFL books, they teach you this skill, how to not panic and how to find the answers in the text if you have an unknown word. Don't read everything, only the information that will give you the answer for the questions. Don't read like every word and sentence. So this is skimming and scanning techniques that you can work on. And of course, check your answers before you submit something. And again, even if you don't know, if you say you don't have time, you don't know the answer, my recommendation, just pick any answer. Who knows, maybe that's your lucky day, and maybe this will be the right answer. It's better than just to leave the blank space and not answer at all. Okay, so this is also something that I want you to remember. Some general tips. Remember the structure, we spoke about that. So remember the question location. If you understand, okay, so this is the text, this is my question. I remember that at the end of the text they spoke about that. I remember that at the beginning of the text they spoke about that. So it will be easier for you to find the answer to particular question that you have during exam in your text. Question types, we spoke about that. This is also an idea to practice with the same test more than once. It means that you decide, okay, so in half a year I will take IELTS or TOEFL. So now today is 3rd of November. I will do this test. You did this test. Do the same test, then you practice during a month or a week or whatever time you allocate to yourself, and then in a month or two take the same test and see your progress, and then do this several times. Okay, so this is a recommendation that people and professionals ask to do, because you will see your progress. Okay, I hope it will be progress. So plan your time management. It means while you're preparing, so have a schedule for yourself. Explain your answers. This is very important, both for listening and for reading, but mostly for reading. So you have to really understand, find the sentence, find the words, find the keywords that will answer your question. Of course, you can predict. Of course, you have your background knowledge, but not necessarily your background knowledge will answer this particular question type like it was presented in the text. Okay, so be attentive with that. You're all guys very smart. You know a lot. You have a great background. Yeah. And when you see the text, you may know, okay, I know everything about agriculture. I will very quickly scan the text and I will go and answer this question because that's my major. But what you know and what the text really says, it can be different things, okay? So they may express opposite ideas. So that's why explain your answers, find the answers in the text, particular part, particular word combination. So pick right time and place to study. So when you prepare, and get professional support. So ask a language facilitator or your friend or somebody who is familiar with the format of the text and can help you. So probably it's a good idea to practice with someone who can help you at least sometimes. If you don't have an opportunity to have a regular language classes, at least sometimes someone has to check you. Listening. Again, the format you see on the screen. we have already kind of discussed that. In IELTS, 4 parts. In TOEFL, depending if it's experimental or not. Again, now we speak about only academic IELTS, so that's why the topics all are going to be about academia. In IELTS, there are 10 types of questions that you might have, okay? So, and this is, again, what you need to cover. While preparing, we are not going to cover it everything, but while preparing, I motivate you to have a special attention on how you deal with the time, how you write the time, how you listen to the time, because sometimes people are confused with AM, PM, or, you know, that in the army they say, we sometimes say in Ukraine, like 1600, so it will be 4 o'clock. In the United States, for example, they will never say like, let's meet at 18 o'clock, right? They don't say, they use a 12-hour clock, so they will say at 6 and then PM, AM, they will tell this in the listening, let's meet at 6 PM, and in your writing part, it will be in the evening or in the morning, and you have to remember, if it is PM, it's in the evening, if it is AM, it means in the morning. So, you know, all the small tricks, so make sure that you understand how the time works in English language. The same goes with numbers, how to write numbers, especially this decimals like 2/3 or 1/4, so practice with that, listen to that, how to write the prices, how to write the dates, then letters. I know you guys have very high level of English. I'm pretty sure that most of us, if you already decided to take this kind of exam, so you are B1, B2 and higher, but sometimes even students at the or people at a higher level of English, they might confuse letters C and S or Y and U, like, you know, these small things, and then they will spell you probably the name or their name street or the name of a person, something which is not traditional like Bob and Peter, but some more difficult or unfamiliar or international name for you, or they may spell some place, and this will be a stumbling block for you because you might forget how to write some letters, C or S, what did they say? So practice with that, because sometimes students at a higher level might be confused. Addresses like Buckingham Palace or Queen Street, they will not spell you. They usually, or in most of the cases, so they expect you to know some famous places, so London Eye, or I don't know, like Harvard or Yale University, they speak about that. They will not spell you that, so you need to know how to spell this. But if it's something more difficult and less famous, they will most likely spell you that. So again, my recommendation, practice with that as well. Okay, so listening tips. Again, prediction, be careful with the question order. If you don't know something, just move on. And if you have time, you will come back or just click any answer, not to leave the gap. Okay, look at paraphrasing, because what you listen, and the same it goes with reading, and what you have as the answer, this can be different things. So they will use synonyms, they will use the different sentence structures. So that's why you have to be able to restate and paraphrase the sentences. Again, ignore words that you do not know, it's fine. Just move on and try to get from the context. Take care of spelling and grammar. This is an important thing. Spelling, they will reduce the, if you spell Buckingham Palace, like in the previous slides, something which is not supposed to be spelled, unfortunately, they will reduce your scores. Again, some people ask me, what if on IELTS I use American spelling, like you spell program with one M, or during the speaking you say schedule, not schedule? No worries. So just stick, they recommend to stick to one system. If you in writing or speaking, if you write everything in American spelling, American pronunciation. So try to do this consistently in American style. If it is British, if you are a fan of British, that's fine. So try to stick to one system. But even if you mix sometimes, so you say the word program, you spell it with double M-E, like British one, but then another word like favorite, you spell it in American style, it will not be an issue. Just they recommend to stick to one system, but that's fine if you have this different. Use upper lowercase letters, so you know, proper nouns we write with the capitals, I we write with capitals, so all these rules you have to stick to. Again, practice pronouncing letters and numbers. Why? Because they can dictate you their phone number, right? 2234587 Oh my God! So you need to write it, and they spell it or they tell it only once. Maybe during their listening task they will repeat it, but that's it. So you're going to. We don't want you to miss that information. So practice with that. Okay. Again, don't leave answers blank. Practice listening, and note-taking techniques is also important. Speaking of TOEFL, we have 6 main types of questions. This is the structure. We are not going to take a lot of time on that. Yes, so you will see how they appear. All conversations are about academia, okay, and recommendations and advice will be mostly the same as for IELTS. That's why I think we are good to move to writing part. I know that we are running out of time, but I think that we will still cover writing quickly. So both tasks in both exams. TOEFL is just about an integrated task, which we don't have in IELTS. You also see the time, how long it takes. Questions in IELTS. First is always you discuss the graph or a table or a picture. Okay, so it's always like this. Task 2, it's a composition or an essay, as we say, it's an essay. Okay, again, there are strategies that you can understand. You need to understand the question times. You need to plan your answer. I put it in bold, I underline, so plan your answer. You really need to have first the draft, the outline, and only after that have a real essay writing. Without plan, without draft, it's very difficult even for a professional to write an essay. I always say composition, but an essay. So that's why practice writing drafts and outlines. For TOEFL, again, it's first is integrated writing, meaning that you are going to read and then to listen and then to write. This is the example how you can take notes from reading passage and from listening passage. That's why I tell you note-taking is an important skill for you. Okay, so you really have to understand how to do that and develop your system of note-taking. And this is just one of the example, because you need to read the text, listen to information, and then produce a piece of writing, judging or based on reading and listening. That's why it's an important skill. And number 2, it's pretty much like a classic essay, which has also different types, and you better know how to write an opinion essay and other types of essays. Also, they have their peculiarities. So that's why, again, the general recommendation will be to plan your times wisely, to be able to paraphrase, to use transitional. Tip number 4, to use transitional words and phrases in both TOEFL and IELTS. I would say. And yeah, so practice writing, because it's, you know, not that easy to write a composition if you have only a very short period for that, only short time for that. Okay, so again, craft your outline both for TOEFL and IELTS. Okay, and go and write. This is what my general recommendation will be. So statement, reason, and example. This is the theorem, this is the formula that you need to remember. You say something, you give your reasons, and you give examples. This formula goes for TOEFL and for IELTS essay writing. So just remember this. And I think we will skip like challenges and move to speaking section very quickly. So again, you already know the format at least a little bit, or maybe you have already practiced with that before. So yeah, in IELTS speaking questions, you have 3 parts. What they pay attention to, so your fluency and coherence, your grammar, your vocabulary. Some people ask me about the pronunciation. Oh, what if I have accent? Accent is okay. Your pronunciation should be correct. Stress of the words, if it is vegetable, it's vegetable, not vegetable. If it is comfortable, it's comfortable, not comfortable. You know, this is something that they pay attention to. Remember these 4 categories: pronunciation, fluency and coherence, grammar, and vocabulary. This is what they check. They do not check your ideas. They may ask you about questions that you don't really know, like about again, business or something. You don't need to know about that. They don't check knowledge of the field. They check what we have discussed previously. Better not memorize the answers. Be familiar with different topics. That is what I recommend you, to read some books, to read some information, so that you will be able to speak about different topics. But if you understand that you learned some convoluted word, but you are not confident of using it, better not to use it, okay? But practice with grammar structures. Again, don't worry about your accent, both in TOEFL and IELTS. If you need to think, it's okay. You can it's in IELTS. You can pause because you speak to the person. You can say something like, that's an interesting question, or I have never thought about this. Unfortunately, on TOEFL, you have very limited time, so you don't have an opportunity to think or to say, oh, have these feelers. You know, I would say that, so you have really strict time period so that you need to cover. Avoid feelers like, you know, it adds a little bit natural conversation, but try not to overwhelm your conversation with these feelers that I know modern and people use them. Okay, extend your answers, don't speak monotone, and feel natural, like you speak with your friends. Again, this slide is quite interesting because in normal life we would say something like, I don't know if you know Britney Spears, but maybe my generation knew her and know her. So my loneliness is killing me. So this is what you would say in normal English, but in IELTS, the isolation I find myself in brings mystery onto my life. So this is what they expect you to speak in IELTS, more academic, more convoluted. Some other examples we have on the slide too. And moving to TOEFL, so this will be our last part. Moving to TOEFL, speaking questions. Again, question types you see, we are not going to cover them. It's not the goal of our conversation today. They are mixed, as we have said. Yeah, you may see that these are integrated questions where you have read, listen, and then only speak. That's why you really need to understand the format. And I always recommend to use template. Create templates for yourself. I created the sentences for myself. I just learned them, so I knew when I need to start my answer, I will start with that. And I even didn't spend time while answering on a real exam, thinking and memorizing what I will say. I had my outline, and I just filled with information that I read and heard. The same goes to writing, guys. You need to have a template. You need to remember the sentence beginning, the sentence transition phrases, and then it will be easier. You will have your plan in mind, and you will just fill the gaps with necessary information that you need to answer the particular question. So it makes it way easier. Okay, so almost the same recommendation. Also, find a study buddy. Why not? It always helps especially if you don't have an opportunity to work with experienced teacher. Maybe some friends will help you to speak. Also, a good idea to record yourself and listen, and you will be surprised how interestingly you sound in English. So don't hesitate to do that. So to record yourself, your conversation, your monologues. You may chat and bubble on different topics. So this will really, really help you. Okay. And again, people ask me, who checks the answers? If we speak about TOEFL, you speak to a computer, right? And you write your submissions, yes, so electronically. But writing and speaking are checked by both computers and professionals, so especially trained. That's an interesting thing. And as for your speaking, you may see they check your how sustained your speech, how repetitious you are. If you use the same words, it's not a good idea. How deep your vocabulary is, your pronunciation, not an accent, pronunciation they check, and so on. So this is the slide that I want you to keep in mind. So I think we are good with that. So we have some more and more information, but I think we may stop now, or if Oksana gives us 5 more minutes, we can continue. So Oksana, what do you think?
Thank you so much, Lena. The presentation was wonderful. It was like, a small boot camp. So guys, I hope you enjoyed. We have some questions, and if it's possible, just like to cover some of them very quickly, okay? So it would be nice. So the first question from Sasha, she wrote the question in YouTube, and I would like I will answer it really shortly. So I have a question about SAT. Could I pass this exam? I think yes, it's possible. Today we're going to discuss SAT and the option of this exam. But if you have some questions, you can contact EducationUSA, and we will gladly help you with that question. So we move to the next, how to prepare by yourself. The question from Nastya, how much time is needed?
It's a great question. So to prepare yourself is not always an easy thing, not necessarily an easy thing. So again, first of all, I would recommend you to work with specialized literature. Yeah. So like, for instance, I don't advertise. It's not an advertising. It's something that I work with. Yeah. So like, for instance, Final Draft. So this is a book that teaches you not necessarily the language, but the skills. You will not see a lot of text here or vocabulary. It's a skill. So they teach you. You see this on the screen. Yeah. I hope that you see. Okay. And they teach you how to write, for example, an essay. Yeah. So you can see the outline. You can see the draft. So these books will really, really help you practice, record yourself, and so on. And I have a good slide that tells how much time you need to spend. Yes, thank you, our technical support for that. So this is the amount of hours. Number of hours that you need to spend if you want to reach some certain level. For instance, if you want to reach a B2 level, so you need to practice up to 600 hours. Of course, everything is super individual, right? Super individual, but it's approximately, it's the research that linguists did, and they calculated that if you want to be successful in IELTS for instance, 7.5, yes, if you want to have this level, so you need to practice up to 800 hours, sometimes less, sometimes more. So Natya, maybe this will answer your question. Yes, so practice with good books, necessary books, have a study buddy or a professional teacher who can, not every week, but at least sometimes, grade your writing or grade your listening, okay, so that the person can assess you. And remember about this amount of hours. So that would be like a very brief recommendation. Of course, there are a lot of tongue twisters that you need to cover in order to speak fluently. There are some resources that can help you with idioms. Yeah, so you need to be able to know some idioms for your speaking part. Also, there are a lot of good resources online. I strongly recommend you, and you can see them on the screen, to read some news, to read Khan Academy, which is an amazing resource for, especially if you prepare for American TOEFL. Okay, so they give you some academic and non-academic vocabulary ideas, or for example, American stories. So you can read, listen, and practice yourself. Free reading speed test. Again, just maybe take a screenshot or a picture. So this is the resource that can really help you to understand how quickly you can read this or that text. Also, lots of listening websites where you can listen, practice. Okay, so you can see them now on the screen. Yeah, so as I have already mentioned, there is also the site that helps you. I will try to tongue twisters, because they can help you with your pronunciation and how to sound maybe more natural. Okay, and also power typing, because you're going to type, guys. If you're not very quick in typing, you better practice. And there are special applications. You may find tons of more. It's just something that I found and I decided to share with you. So yeah, so practice typing things, because it can also be an important thing for you. Yeah, so these are basic things that you need to do. And the final picture that I wanted to do with you, this is how home edition looks like. Look at my hands. So because you don't have a lot of paper, you don't have, you have to put your piece of paper in a special file, like our files that we do, and you have to write on the file. You can't write on the paper. You have to write on this file, or you can have a small whiteboard, but you have to make sure that you clean everything and show it on the camera to your proctor, examiner. They call it proctor. They call this person proctor. So after you did your notes, because everything should be deleted. All my beautiful white table was in this marker, because you write with the marker, because pen will not work or pencil will not work with the file, right? And you can see everything is so empty. Usually I have lots of books around, but I had to put away everything. Yes, if you decide to take a home edition, be prepared and ready for that.
Thank you so much for this life hack. So actually, you already covered several more questions from our chat, so I will skip them, guys, and I hope that you heard the answer for your question. And we have also just a few. For example, let's move to Max, a question from Max, and he asked, are there any requirements concerning the accent? So it was mentioned already by Olena, so there is no requirement. Thank you. What was the most complicated part for you when you passed your exams?
I thought, yeah, so thank you for that question. And, I bring myself back to that experience again, and I live it through with you today again. So I thought that writing would be the most complicated, but it turned out that it was the easiest part for me, and I scored really high. I even didn't expect. So I took almost maximum out of 30. I think I had 28. And the only thing is why I had 28, because something again happened to their system. And while I was typing my answer, I could, like the last paragraph in second part where we have the essay, I didn't see that. So I was typing and I was hoping that now it will scroll up, so that the screen will scroll up and I will see my paragraph, but it never happened. And I was typing, and then I was trying to move my mouse. And the thing is, when you take home edition exam, so you can't, move a lot, and you can't ward off your eyes and do this kind of thing. So you have to sit straight and look at the camera. So you can type, of course, and put your eyes down if you don't know how this keyboard works. But anyway, I was typing and I couldn't see the last paragraph. I don't know what was there. So I was just typing. Okay, so there were some answers, but I couldn't even proofread that. So writing was the easiest, but I think the most difficult, guys, believe it or not, was speaking. So that was my fad. I thought, speaking, come on, I can speak hours. I'm a teacher. I have lots of ideas, tons of ideas. I know idioms, I know this and that, I know the structure, but it turned out to be the weakest for me. So I had 26 out of 30 because it was really, because it is an integrating speaking. You listen, you read, and then you speak. And I just couldn't comprehend this information. I couldn't put listening and reading together so that I could produce something. That was the most difficult part for me. But again, I didn't expect that. I thought that speaking, that's my fad. I'm fluent in that now.
Thank you so much. So the next question from Zhenya about favorite sources of text for reading. So it was also was covered. And guys, if you need those links, you can just scroll back this video and take screen or take a look at this link and use it. And I'm sure they will be helpful for you. Next question is about the time. Again, from Aisel. Is there anyone who reminds you about the time?
Unfortunately, if you take a computer-based version, so you will see when the program is open in your computer, so you will see a timer, of course, both for IELTS and for TOEFL. So you can see the time, yeah, and nobody reminds you about that, so but you have to track it yourself. I know that when, at least it was in the past, when you took IELTS paper-based in some center, they could warn you, like, guys, you have, so first of all, there will be a clock on the wall. It's a requirement on the wall or on the table, so that's inaccessible setting so that you can see that clearly. And they ask you, can you see the clock, right? Because it's a requirement for the testing center. They might remind you about that, so like 5 minutes left or 10 minutes left, but not necessarily so that they will do that. Usually you have to track it by yourself, which again, why I say that all these exams, they require multiple skills from you. Language is just the means, yeah, so they don't really test your language skills, so they test multiple of other skills, including your time management, which is my weakest point. I always run out of time.
Thank you. So, interesting question from Lisa. If I'm in America, United States, at the time of my graduation, can I take the test and enter the university without returning to Ukraine?
Of course, so first of all, you can take a home-based edition, yes, so like I did, yes, so and home edition you can take from any part of in any corner of the world. And yeah, you can address to many universities, local universities or local schools. They may organize this test for you, so you can come in your community and ask if there is an opportunity to take the test, and they will advise you, because again, maybe you need to go to another place, another city, but they will advise you and they will recommend you, because they're international students who come to the United States. They hang out for some period of time, so they learn language, and then they take these exams on the site, on the place. So yeah, you can do this from the United States, from Canada, from Great Britain, of course, no worries about that. So if you don't want to take home edition and stay at home, if you want to go to a language center, so they will advise you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So guys, there is like one more thing about home edition. It's okay if you have this version of the TOEFL, but you have also to check it with your university. So is it okay for university? And will they accept the result of home edition? So be careful and check before you apply for any tests. Thank you so much. So we have just like 2 more questions, but they were already covered. I think I just like read them aloud. One from Lilia, where you can find free tests to practice IELTS online. So you can find them in the internet, I think. Yes, so there are like tons of sources. So again, scroll back this video and find useful links for you. And do you know any app or platform? Thank you so much. Yes, that will help me improve my spoken English. Again, a lot of links were shared already. So guys, take a screenshot and use them. And you can also contact EducationUSA Ukraine, and we will help you with a great pleasure. So yeah, we are done with all questions, it seems to me. And I would like to thank you, Olena, for joining us today, for giving this wonderful presentation, and for being with us for more than 1 hour. It was really useful and tons of information for our students. And thank you one more time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me today. I'm delighted to share my knowledge, and I hope it was useful, guys. Thank you very much for being so active, for your questions, meaningful questions. And I wish all of you, we don't say good luck, but break a leg. I wish you to break a leg in a good sense. Yes, in a good sense. So I wish you to have only high scores and pass everything with flying colors. Speaking of idioms, yeah, so I'm a fan. I'm a nerd, a little bit of idioms. So good luck, everyone. And if you have any questions, yes, Education USA Ukraine is always with you.
Thank you, guys. Don't forget to register for our Education USA virtual fair, which is on the 5th of November from 11 to 5 p.m. The link will be on the screen, or you can also scan the information and just register. There you can find more than 50 universities and you can talk to representatives and find something for you. So yes, thank you so much. It was great to read your questions, great to speak with Olena, and hope to see you next Thursday. Have a good week.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.